Welcome back to another installment of 15 Minutes with Andy, our podcast series. We are in season number 2. For those of you that are discovering or finding the podcast for the first time, we certainly appreciate you finding your way to us. What we're looking for, kind of a little background on our podcast. We are looking for stories of hope and stories of inspiration in some cases, but the main thread, the main denominator and common denominator and everything is a story of positivity. And at the end of the day, we hope you walk away with a little more positivity in your world on that particular day based on conversations that we have with guests. We have a great one right now. We've been looking forward to this one since we kind of set it up. We've been trying to find time to get together, but you're a coach, Austin Carr, and I'm in radio and broadcasting and doing games, and we tried this through the winter and then decided let's just wait and push this out to the spring. So Austin Carr is our guest here in this installment of this podcast, 15 Minutes with Andy. Austin, thanks for taking time to be with us.
Thanks for having me, Andy. I really appreciate it.
So I guess before we dive into your full story, little background. Tell our podcast listeners where you're from, who you are, what it is that you do for a living.
I'm a Ayersville graduate, 2011. Great place there, little small town. I loved having that small town feel of Ayersville. Had our one blinking light and our small little gas station and D&G's, of course. Can't forget to give D&G's that shout out when we talk about Ayersville. But yeah, I graduated from Ayersville. I was a football player, baseball, wrestling, did all the musicals in high school, and throughout my whole childhood, I was part of the Boy Scouts from Troop 76. I actually got my Eagle Scout when I turned 18. I got my whole project done, and actually my project was to help renovate the Catholic school in Defiance. They moved out to their new building, the Holy Cross. And my project was to renovate the gymnasium and refurbish their stage that they had there. So that was a lot of fun doing that. Once I graduated from Ayersville, I went to Ohio University to study special education. And when I was there, my neighbor down the hall kind of brought me onto the thought of joining the Air Guard. So he was like, "Yeah, man, like, I'm getting school paid for, I'm getting a monthly check, going to drills, I only have to miss one weekend a month, and I just go down there." And so I started looking into it my freshman year of college after the first few bills came through.
What led you to OU? Why Ohio University? Just what made you fall in love with the campus?
So OU was kind of a family legacy there. My 3 older brothers all went to OU. My oldest brother went there for his undergraduate. Then my second brother went there for physical therapy school for his graduate degree. And then my next brother went for sports management. So it's kind of like a family legacy. And I just was like, they were like, "Hey, you want to come down here." But as soon as I got there, I'll tell you what, one of the most beautiful campuses you'll ever think of. For it being a bigger school, MAC school, I can walk across campus in 15 minutes, and they always say the freshman 15, but not in Athens, because you're walking up and down all the hills, and it's just such a cool place, and small. It had that small town feel still, which I really liked and appreciated coming from Ayersville and just the Defiance area. It felt close to home, even though I was a distance away. It still felt like home. And then having my brothers there definitely helped.
So you're at OU, and I guess, do you have before we transfer into the Ohio Air National Guard, do you come from a military family in some way, shape, or form? Is that something that always had interested you, or not until you got to OU and your buddy told you about it?
Yes and no. So my grandpa was part of the Army Air Corps in World War II. He flew a bomber there, and he was part of the engineer inside the plane. So, and then my cousin was part of the Marine Corps. But other than that, in my whole family, it's just kind of been us. So there hasn't been a whole lot of other military. Mostly my dad's side had more people in the military. So I just have always been a very patriotic person. I love what the U.S. flag stands for and who we are as a people. I know people don't always see it that way, but when you see it in a different, from somewhere else, and you see the outside looking in, you truly understand how amazing this country is and what the red, white, and blue really means. And it's one of those things that we take for granted. And I've always had that patriotic feel inside. And then that when you finally get that chance to, do something about it and really help people out, it means a lot. Actually, a pretty funny story. When I first said, okay, I'm 100% doing this, I was sitting in my dorm room watching CMT, and American Soldier came on, one of the old school, just one of the most patriotic songs. And I was just sitting there. I was like, yep, I'm doing this. That song came on. I was watching the music video, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing.
Almost a sign.
Yeah, it was like a sign. It was, God was telling me, hey, you're meant to do something great. You need to go do this. You need to pursue it. So you do pursue it.
What was it like to be in the Ohio Air National Guard as a college student? Tell us about that. Was it exactly how it was when your buddy said, dude, it's one weekend a month, you get paid, you get your school paid for? It was that kind of the way it was for you those years at OU?
Yes and no. I didn't really miss out on the college experience a whole lot because I still had those times. I wasn't always committed, but it really taught me personally a lot of discipline and really why I was going to school. It gave me the bigger picture on the outside world. And it was one of those things where it gave me so many opportunities to go do different things while I was in school because I would hop on a trip here or there to go do something, and the school worked with me really well. If I had to miss a class or two, it was okay. But a lot of times it was in the summer. So my summer job was working military, doing different things for them, and not really missing school, which also has helped out a lot being a teacher. I've been able to do that as well, do a lot of work with them in the summers and doing different trips. But it really was the discipline and just keeping your focus on the task at hand, and that really helped out.
So you graduate, and by the way, did you always know that you wanted to be a teacher?
Yeah, so I knew I always wanted to be a teacher, but I just didn't know exactly what. And so my cousin, she teaches at Good Samaritan School and in Defiance. And for a day, the school let me skip school for a day and go observe her, and because I just wanted to see what it was like. And as soon as I observed her classroom, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I just being able to. I've always been somebody that wants to help people, and especially when there's struggles in life that you can't or they can't, control. I've always wanted to be able to give that little extra help to people, and that this career that I'm in now has 100% given me that ability to do that. So,
Austin, what was so you graduate from Ohio University. What was your military life like, let's say, from the time you graduated up until August of 2021, when we're going to dive into kind of the teeth of your story? What was it like for you in that Ohio Air National Guard?
So right away I graduate, and in that time I had the opportunity to go overseas for just a quick trip here or there. I went to Slovakia and helped Indiana Guard members get back. They were doing some training with other nations. And really my job is very interesting. So my job is loading aircrafts and downloading aircrafts, but there's also the aspect of preparing the cargo to go on the planes, and all the paperwork and the hazardous material is one of the things that we really specialize on, and making sure that stuff is safe to fly and that it's packaged the right way and all the documentation so the pilots know it. And so any outside group that's going anywhere, they need our help. So we volunteered and we go out and help. We've helped Toledo out multiple times, getting out a lot of Indiana Army Guard members we've helped out. And then in 2017, I had my first deployment. I deployed over to Qatar at Al Udeid for 6 months. That's where I had my first real experience of just kind of being away, and that was my first real experience of desert heat. Whew. They say, I was always told, like, hey, you know, when you first walk off that plane, like, your breath's going to be taken away because it's so hot. And that is the truth.
100%.
100%. You walk out and you're like, whoa. And you sweat in places that you didn't even know you could sweat. And it's like just constant all the time sweating. And that was a great experience. That was one of the times that I was really able to learn different aspects of the job that I couldn't at a guard base. Now I'm working with all active duty, 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts for 6 months, and going full go the whole time. That was one of my first experiences with that. And on that deployment, I was doing load planning, so I was planning the sequence of the cargo going onto the ships or on the aircraft. So that was really interesting because for me, as just a normal guy, you get to see the bigger picture of what's going on all over in the AOR and in, you know, different places. So that was really cool to have that experience. And then I came back, and that's when I got a temporary job at the base in Mansfield, because I got back in January of that time, so I couldn't really go back to teaching at that point. I worked there all through the summer, and then that's when I got my teaching job at Defiance, was that next school year.
But Defiance was Defiance your first teaching job?
No, Defiance is not my first teaching job. I taught at Federal Hocking
and was the
school.
wrestling coach there, right?
Yes, yeah. And the wrestling coach, I coached football, wrestling, and baseball. Me and one other guy kind of swapped head coaching jobs in those. He was the head coach for football, I was his assistant. I was the head coach for wrestling, he was my assistant, and then we did a co-head coach for baseball, just so we could both have, you know, I did a lot of the behind the scenes head coaching stuff, and he did a lot of the face stuff for baseball, just because he was used to it, and that was one of my first experiences of being a head baseball coach of some sort. So there was a lot of things that I didn't quite understand that all goes into coaching. So when I say it was a very small school, it was a very, very small school in southeastern Ohio.
Well, how long was any deployment that you went on? The one that you mentioned, how long were you gone on each deployment?
So the actual deployment is only 6 months. So Air Force wide, they try to keep the deployments to 6 months, and it's give or take a little bit here or there, just mostly for, you know, keeping people fresh and making sure that they're focused. And that's one thing that I appreciate about, you know, Air Force and the Guard. You know, the Guard really makes sure that it's 6 months, can't go too far after, and everything like that. So
let's flash forward now to August of 2021. So X amount of months ago from when we're talking here in April of 22. So all of this is happening. President Biden has announced that the war in Afghanistan is going to be ending. When did you know, based on what the plan was, when did you know, and when did you find out? What was your timeline of finding out that this is where I'm going to go? I'm going to be deployed, first of all, and this is where I'm going to go. This is what I'm going to do. Take us into that, whether it be July or August or whenever you started finding out information, Austin.
So I knew about a year in advance that I was going to deploy. And so, but I didn't know the whole aspect of it. I knew that I was going over.
It was coming.
And it was coming, and I knew that I was going to Kuwait, and I was going to be a part of a quick reaction team to kind of go help support different areas that need more help in my area of the job of loading the cargo, or if a unit was going somewhere that they didn't have those capabilities, I would go with them, and we had a team that would go out there, do our job, and then come back. That's what we were planning. I got into country after flying for what seemed about 3 days straight with different stops and this and that. But and with all the COVID regulations, we couldn't get off the plane, where we had to stop a few times. So it was a long flight, to say the least, going through there. But we got into country in Kuwait, and we were they were like, hey, just so you know, the taskings haven't been going on a whole lot. It's been kind of slow, but you're going to be working at the cargo yard here until we get it something. And then a day later, that's when the news broke about, actually, one of my friends that I was over there with, he just sends me a picture. He goes, we may be getting a little busy. And I'm like, what? And I read it, and it was the first article saying, draw down, we are out by a certain date. And we then got called into a briefing, and it was like a secret briefing that we had, put all of our electronics and phones in different places. And we walked into the room, and they're like, hey, you guys are going. You're going to Afghanistan. You're all going to be in different teams, going to different parts of the country, and you're going to help with the drawdown. So I actually was in Afghanistan for pretty much the whole 6 months, starting in April when everything started to draw down. I was there. The first place I went, and I shut down one of the larger bases, and I was there for roughly 25, 26 days of some sort. And the first day that I got there was when they closed down the kitchen. So so then they shipped in a bunch of the MREs, the meals ready to eat. So I was eating on those MREs for 25 days straight, but that was one of the really cool experiences of because it was one of the larger bases in Afghanistan at the time, and I was the third to last plane to leave that base. So that was that was the first time that I had a rocket attack. We were doing work, and then all of a sudden the sirens go off, and we find a bunker. And luckily, it was quite a ways away. It was about a mile away from the first one, and and what's so cool is that they could track it. They knew where it came from, and then they brought in our planes and took out whatever it was that was out there coming at, and there was other things ready to go, getting ready to be pointed at the base, but they took care of it.
Even with all that said, I can only imagine that's got to be that's the definition of a gamut of emotions, isn't it?
Right, yeah. Because, we're working there, and we're having, we're shipping people out, shipping cargo out, all these different assets for the U.S. government and other nations, and it's working, 12 hours a day, sometimes a little bit more. My job was to inspect the cargo and make sure that it was ready to go on the planes, and then load it. So we're really working hard, and we're building those bonds. We're having a good time. It really was. It was one of those things where you wouldn't think. You make the best of the situation you're in, and I was with some amazing people, and we were working hard, and then next thing you know, it's that siren goes off, and like you said, the emotions are crazy because it's a lot of high, low, everything's going on. It can be high to low in a matter of seconds. where it's like, oh yeah, I am where I am. Like there was a few times where you're doing your job and then you kind of forget that you're over there, because it's beautiful. I mean, the mountains are beautiful, the night sky is beautiful at night, and it's very calm and peaceful, and then it's not. It's like that. And it's like that. It's kind of an amazing thing that's how that kind of works.
When did you start transitioning then into now you're airlifting refugees out of Afghanistan? At what point in time did that start, or when did you find out, and when did you start doing all of that?
So once I started shutting down the bases, I was a part of shutting down 3 different bases in Afghanistan, and then I was moved to Kabul. I was moved to that base, and they were like, all right, this is going to be the last one. You're going to be here for a couple, like, you've got 3 planes of stuff to move out. Everything else is going to stay because the NATO is still going to try to keep bases here. Other people are going to try to keep their forces here. And then that just kept dragging on a little bit. And I was actually in Kabul for a couple months before everything went down. And so we were hearing the Taliban were kind of going through the country pretty easily, and we heard rumors, and when you're there, like you get to know people, and you get to know the right people, especially when you're in my job, because everybody comes to us. Because if they need something shipped in or they need something shipped out, they come to us. So, and we were a really small group. We had 7 of us, and we worked 3 people on one shift, 4 people on another shift, just working through. And then we were working with some contractors that would help load the planes with us. But when you get to know people and people get to know you, and we would hear rumors, it's like, hey, this may happen. And then one day I get a phone call, and they're like, is this Sergeant Carr? And I was like, yeah, this is Sergeant Carr. They're like, okay, I'm so-and-so. And then they say their rank, and they're, a colonel. and they're like, hey, we want to just talk to you and ask you a few questions about all this. And I was like, you want to ask me questions on how to do this? It was one of those moments.
I'm giving the intel.
Yeah, it's like I'm sitting there, and it's just like, okay, so that's kind of when it was more of a real thing that all of this was going to happen at some point. And so that was really, really interesting to be able to see that side of it. The planning side of it was very interesting, and the different people putting in input and who was making final decisions. And it was very interesting to me that I had some input, and it was interesting because it had to be in your mind, how did I end up in this moment right now, and I'm the one giving this input to, as you said, a higher ranking general or generals. Right. I said to myself multiple times, I am a high school intervention specialist and in the Ohio Air National Guard, and what? I'm the one here that's doing this and putting in this situation. But like I said, there's a reason for everything, and I truly believe that. And I believe that I was put in that situation for a reason, and it was shown, like from, different reasons. I saw American Soldier on the TV, and then 9 years later, this is the situation I'm in. Like, it was very amazing, really, that I was able to, adapt to those situations. So we hear all of a sudden, like, it starts ramping up a little bit. It's like, hey, things might be coming. And then all of a sudden, we get the order. We are 24-hour emergency evacuating the embassy.
Wow.
and they're like, expect this many planes, and helicopters are flying back and forth to the embassy, to the airport, taking people off, and we're putting them right back onto a plane and getting them out of there. And it went like that. I mean, we saw it coming, and all the planning that went into it just went out the window, because it was, all right, we have to do it now. There's no
plan B.
Working up to it. There is no plan B. It is get the job done. Let's go. This is what we have to do. And that's one of the things a lot of people, when I came back, would ask me, like, oh, how could that happen like that? How it was such a disaster. And I stop them. I'm like, well, I don't think you realize what really did happen, because no one's plan was going to work when no one thought the Taliban was just going to walk through and not have any, like, they didn't get any, no bullets were fired whatsoever from any opposing force. They just walked right through. So no one could plan that happening. You know, that's just one of those things. No one could plan that. So it really wasn't that, like, of a disaster. It was. Don't get me wrong. It was, everything that happened really fast, and we did everything we could, and it just happened so fast that no one could really plan for that to happen.
I don't know what your emotions, I think if I said the word gratifying, I don't know if that would even do it justice, but I guess this is like a two-part emotion question. What's it like in the moment, knowing that you're getting all of these people out and doing it safely and to safety? So gratifying is the first word, powerful is probably a better word. And then now that you've had time to kind of reflect on it, what was that, both those experiences, like for you?
So it was, and like you had mentioned before, it was a lot of mixed emotions going on. When everything was happening, it was, you know, a full 13, 14-hour days of getting people out for 14 days straight. It really was. So there wasn't a whole lot of time to think of that aspect of it all. But when you saw the young kids, just the biggest smiles on their face because they were leaving and they were getting onto a plane, there's not very many words that can truly describe that feeling of joy and happiness, that it made it all worth it. 100%. All the blisters and all the back pains, the knee pains, the sore back, just being fully exhausted. It made it all worth it when you were able to see how happy these kids were. I had a little girl come up to me, and she's like, I know I'll never see the video, but just take a picture of me walking up onto the plane. Just take my picture that I'm walking up onto the plane, because I'm just so happy and so excited about it. And it makes you step back a second and think.
I mean, you just said that. I got goosebumps.
Yeah,
Seriously,
I got it again.
Chills.
Just thinking about it. And it makes you really think about, your life in those instances. So going to your second part, the 2 weeks afterwards was a lot of self-reflection. It really was. And just thinking about different situations in my life back home and how grateful I am and, lucky I am to, one, live in the country that I do and have the support system and the friends and family that support me and have my back at home. It was truly eye-opening. I've always said that I've been so lucky to have the parents that I have and the family that I have. But now I truly get it, and I don't take any second for granted now with the people that are in my life, and just the area and the opportunities that I have just living where I was, or just being born here. The odds of that happening, I don't take anything for granted really anymore. That's one of the things that I've really gotten out of that experience.
Austin, how much or how little, you mentioned your parents, did they know as it's going on in real time? Not just them, but your whole family and close friends and everybody at Defiance where you teach and work. How, probably very little. It was just general information. I'm okay, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, when I knew that I was going over there and I knew I was going to be in Afghanistan for an extended period of time, I did call my mom and I told her, I was like, hey, I can't give you a whole lot of information, and I'm not going to give you a whole lot of information of where I will be, but just know I'm going to be there, and I don't know the capabilities of communication because now with internet everywhere and cell phones, you can text pretty much anywhere in the world now. So I had my phone with me. I was able to communicate, but I told her, I was like, I don't know if there's going to be internet at these bases because of us drawing everything down. We're going bare bones and everything like that. So I'll let you know as much as I can. And I was like, we're about an 8.5 hour difference in time. So when you're awake, I'm probably going to be sleeping. So we'll communicate as much. But in Kabul, she knew that I was there because it was the only place still open. And I never really told her, but she knew. My mom did, and the friends and family. I remember one night after that the worst day there when the suicide bombers. It was a pretty intense day. The whole situation was. I was working at the time. I was actually out on the flight line, and I felt the ripples of the explosion, and I was like. And the planes were running, so I didn't really hear it a whole lot. I heard it a little bit, but I was like, that didn't seem right. But I texted Mom at that point because I got something so I could communicate better, like a little Wi-Fi puck. And I told her, I was like, Mom, don't watch the news. Do me that favor, because what's probably going to be on the news is something that you don't want to watch, because something did happen today, but I'm okay. And if anything changes, I will let you know. And so I that's how I tried to, because she later told me that the news was running 24/7 on at the house, and she slept 3-4 hours a night just because she was so worried. And just constantly watching the news. And I told her, I was like, Ma, you can't do that. Because, like you said earlier, there's just so much negativity going on everywhere right now, and that's what the news is loving. The news is loving the bad news because that's what people watch. I said, stop watching it, and I will let you know what's going on, and I will let you know as much as I can if I'm safe or not, because you're not going to like what you see. Because, it was the situation there. It was bad, but obviously the news and everything was picking on the worst parts of it all, and not all of the situation was like on the news, but it was a different experience. I'll never forget some of the smells that was there, and just and so we had, I think the final numbers were close to 100,000 refugees between all the coalition forces got out. So we had to find places to be able to put them, and people were sleeping outside, and you had porta potties, but they had the MREs to eat. the porta potties weren't getting emptied out as often as they probably should, type of situation. So, I mean, there was some people that were sleeping on rocks for 2 to 3 days waiting to get onto a plane. And that's just the refugees. Now, we had the Marines. I'll tell you what, I've always, the branches give people, other branches some crap every now and then.
Yeah.
But and I've always had respect for the Marines, but I have a 100% brand new found respect for these guys and girls, that they are, talk about mentally tough, resilient people. I mean, there was some that were working shifts 48 hours and pulling guard duty and then working here, working there, and then getting a couple hours of sleep and then doing it all over again, or sleeping on the rocks when they had the chance to catch a snooze. It's an amazing thing to be able to see people adapt and overcome situations. And that's something that I was very proud of my guys, that they did really well. I mean, we were put in a situation, I mean, none of us were ever trained to do anything like that. And the guys that I had on my team, there was about 20 of us that, between 2 different shifts, and they were all guard reserve guys. And from all over the place. We had some people from my unit here in Ohio, some people from Connecticut, the Carolinas, and all over the place. And for us to be able to come together and just get the job done. And like I said, we were all guard reserves. We had a few active duty guys sprinkled in there, but we were, the melting pot type of deal. We were all thrown into it, and we all figured it out. And I had the rank, and they were like, all right, this is your team. Make it happen. And I'm like, all right, sir, we'll get it done. and we did. I mean, it was amazing. It truly was. Just none of the guys complained about one thing. It was, what do you need done? All right, let's get it. All right, we got another plane in. We need somebody to run out there. We need somebody to run over here, talk to these guys, work with the air crew. And then they just did it. And it was awesome. I can't say, I said thank you to my guys that I worked with 1,000 times, and I could say it 1,000,000 more. It was some of the best people that I've ever worked with. And they just, it's that brotherhood and sisterhood that you build being inside that situation. And I may never see some of those guys ever again.
But it's there forever.
If I run into somebody 10 years down the road, like, it'll be like we never, it'll have been like yesterday that we saw each other. So that was one of the really fun parts about it as well, building that bond and brotherhood with some of the guys. I actually we took the baseball team, and from Defiance we took them down to Florida for spring break. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys that I was over there with just got back, and he lives in Florida. And so I texted him and I said, hey, do you live anywhere near here? And he goes, I live about 3 hours. Why? And I was like, hey, I'm bringing my baseball team down for spring break. We have this Sunday that we're going to the beach. We're getting in. And he goes, all right, I'll be there. And he showed up. He said, yeah, I wasn't going to miss this for the world. Like, even if you were going to be 5 hours away,
I'm coming.
And so luckily I was able to kind of step away from the team a little bit. The other coaches took on a few extra responsibilities for a couple hours, and we got to sit down and chit-chat about things and really break down some of the stuff that we were able, because a lot of us didn't get the chance to break down the situation with the guys that were there and, talk about it. And that's one thing that I always told myself when I was, after the whole thing. I was like, I'm going to talk about it. As much as I don't want to, all the nitty-gritty parts, the parts where I was super scared, the parts that I was really excited about, all of that I'm going to talk about if somebody asks me. And some guys, and that's just me personally, and there's other people that won't. And I totally understand and I totally respect that. And me personally, like some of these guys, that was a crappy situation for me for 2 weeks. There's other veterans out there that it was 2 years, or it was a lot of times there was that kind of situation for a long time. And I can see why people don't want to talk about things. But I always said that I would, just one, to let everybody, if I do have an issue, they understand. And I've been trying to do a little bit more of that on the outside of helping people understand PTSD and things like that. I haven't I just talk to people. I haven't done anything with any kind of organization, but that's something that I want more people to think about instead of, and I know it's one of those things that everybody we're here for the veterans and things like that, but I don't think more people understand why the PTSD and stuff is there, and why people do different things. Like, I sit with my back to the wall and see everybody come inside. I don't like to be not knowing what's going on, and it's like, oh, that's a typical thing for people to do. Well, do you know why? This is, and I try to explain that to people. More
of an education
thing.
Trying
to help educate individuals on that, and so they just get it. And so it was, and some of my friends that I was there with, they are, we were, like I said multiple times, we're Guard Reserve guys, and no one can be really trained for any of those kind of situations or what you saw or what we were there for. But just, and it's tough, and I just want to be able to talk to those guys. And I've been trying to reach out to all my friends a little bit and just check in and see how everybody's doing.
How would you describe your transition home? I mean, you came home in the fall, what did we say, October into November, somewhere in there. I know you were home definitely in November. How would you describe your transition home, I guess, immediately, and now a little more long-term? You're in more of that routine now, I guess, normal routine, quote unquote. How would you describe for you personally your transition, Austin?
So luckily, I was able to have probably roughly a month in Kuwait after Afghanistan. So I was able to decompress a little bit there. And that's where I did a lot of my, the reflecting on everything that was going on. So I'm very thankful that I had that time for me and with a few of the guys that I was with to have that chance to not have a whole lot to do. We were still a little busy, but we were able to, relax a little bit. And I'm very thankful for that time before I came home, because I knew when I came home it was going to be a lot. That I had multiple people reaching out to me, and that news story already hit, and I was...
Heck, you'd gone viral.
Yeah,
you had gone viral with a picture on the plane and everything.
Yeah, I was Defiance famous, and I knew that once I did get home, it was going to be a lot. So I was thankful for that time. But so when I did get home, I kind of took a day or two just at home, at my house, with my cat, that I was able to see again, and just immediate family. I didn't really go out in the town at all. I just kind of stayed at my parents', stayed at my house, just to get familiar with life again, familiar with the States, familiar with my bed again. I'd been sleeping on something different all the time. And it was nice, but it was different. And it did take a little bit of time to really be comfortable enough to just go fully at it. And then I went right to the school. The 2 days went by, and I called Mr. Jerger, and I said, hey, can I come to the school? I don't want to teach or anything. I just want to walk around the cafeteria and see all the kids and just say thank you, because I had received so many emails from the students, from the staff, of just support throughout the whole time. I can't thank people enough for the support that they gave me. I mean, I had Facebook messages from people I hadn't talked to in a long time, and just the students was one of my main things that I wanted to get back to, because I really enjoyed. Obviously, I enjoy the kids, and they're awesome, and having conversations with them, and they were one of the reasons that I was able to fully, get the job done, because I knew I had to for them, because I knew there was a lot of people that had eyes on the situation and knew what was going on, and a lot of the kids were there, and I just wanted to be able to be that role model or that inspiration that, hey, just because you're in a situation you don't know what to do, you can do it. And the resiliency and everything like that, you can get things done. And I wanted to get back to the school as soon as I could, once I was ready. Obviously, a lot of so I got in, I walked around for a little while, and it was great. Nobody really knew that I was coming. They knew that I was home, but they didn't know I was coming to the school. It was kind of a surprise. And I would just walked into some of the classrooms that I worked with, some of the teachers that I worked with in the classes, and it was the eyes of the students lit up, and they were asking me all the questions, and typical middle schoolers, high schoolers, because before I was teaching in the middle school, and then I transferred to the high school this year. They had an opening, and coaching high school sports, it was just a better move. So I was just talking with the middle schoolers, and then went to the high school, which was great. It was what I needed. It really was. It was, all right, yep, you can do this. You can get back into the swing of things. And then I took about 3 weeks off from teaching, and I did a little bit of coaching because I was getting right into wrestling season. And I just went and visited some family. I went down to see some of my nieces and nephews, and just spent some time with different friends actually the week of Thanksgiving was my first week right back into full-blown teaching. I was like, all right, I can do this. I can, do my 3 days of teaching, and then I'll have a little bit of a break if I need it. So it was actually a perfect timing to be able to work my way back into it. I will say I might have stepped into the coaching role a little too soon. I still had I was coaching at the time middle school wrestling, and younger guys. We weren't very experienced. And wrestling's a tough sport. It truly is. People don't understand sometimes the effort and the hard work that you have to do to be a successful wrestler. And there was times that I had to step out. I had to walk. I was getting too
amped?
Yeah, a little amped, a little frustrated, because they just weren't doing the thing. They weren't doing. You're not doing the move right. And so I definitely think that I stepped into that role a little too soon, coming back from what I was doing and being in charge of grown men and women, having those expectations of the situation, and then going into coaching junior high wrestling with 7th and 8th grade boys and girls. It's like, okay, take a step back, go take a walk. You need to calm down a little bit. And so, I had some really good assistant coaches. The Bloomfields, Chris and Pat Bloomfield, were awesome. They really helped me out with that. And they really helped with the transition back. And so, but from there on, it was full bore. Let's just get back to it. And
how would you describe now, as we sit here now? Where do you feel overall pretty good? Yeah,
I do. I feel real good. There's sometimes that I wouldn't say issues, but I have, an episode, but it's not a major one. It's like, all right, calm down. Like the heart starts racing a little bit, in different situations, or I get amped up some. And, it's just one of those things that I've started to notice it and notice the situations, that it's coming in. And the one thing, and I know the situation that really gets me is the complaining and disrespect at times. I'm not a big fan of that, and the kids know it. But and it all comes from that part where I was doing a lot of that reflecting, and I'm like, wow, like you don't really understand how good you do have it. And so I'm working on that as well, because I know, like, problem's a problem, and if a situation, not every kid's life's great. There's a lot of things going on in the backdrop of kids' lives that you don't know about, and if they see it as an issue, it's an issue, and you have to be understanding of that. And I'm getting better at that, but there are times where it's just like, just stop your complaining. It's just 10 math problems. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Big picture, little picture.
The big picture, little picture, and it's harder for, people who haven't been out of Defiance to see a big picture. There are some kids that don't do that, and so I like the opportunity to be able to show them the big picture of different things, and I try to do that in some of my classes and say, okay, this is Defiance problems. Here is, otherworldly things going on, and like you said, the educating part, just trying to educate and help out as well as much as I can.
Well, I wanted to make sure we got this information out, and I wanted to kind of get how you feel, especially one of the things I'm going to mention, because it's literally, as we sit here and speak, it's a raw emotion. You were back in November awarded, when you spoke at the at Veterans Day at Defiance Schools. I know Lieutenant Governor John Husted, who's a Williams County guy, for those that are listening, a Montpelier resident, former Montpelier resident, a graduate from Montpelier, Ohio's Military Man of the Year Award in November. And today, as we sit here and record this, you were awarded the Bronze Star for your work in Afghanistan. Both those honors. I mean, I got to believe for you, especially the Bronze Star, sitting here just getting it hours ago, but surreal. I know, very grateful, I'm sure, but what are your emotions?
Very, very honored. But I'm a person that I don't do it for the awards or the honor. And but it's very surreal. I knew that I was put in for the Bronze Star, but I was like, okay, that's awesome. Thanks for putting me in, but there's no way. And then when they said, hey, you got it, I was like, what? They're like, yeah, it was approved. You were one of, I think there was, this year you were like one of 100 people that got a Bronze Star this year.
Incredible.
And it was just, it was very surreal, and it was honoring. And I'll say almost all, like everybody that I was with, all the guys that on my crew definitely deserve it as well. But it's humbling. It really is. And it's one of those things that I'm speechless with it, really. I mean, the words to it to describe the feeling of happiness that I have it's amazing. It's always good to be honored for your hard work, and I really appreciated it because some people did see it, and the assembly and everything on Veterans Day at Defiance was awesome. Mr. Jurger and the rest of the staff there did an amazing job on that assembly, and having the opportunity to stand in front of everybody and say thank you, because I needed to have that chance, it meant the world to me, to be able to just look all the kids in the eyes and all the staff and all the town veterans and just say thank you. It really meant a lot to me. Yeah.
We are honored and grateful that you've taken time out of your life, and especially on this momentous day, such a huge day for you, in getting the Bronze Star on this day to sit and visit with us and to tell your story. And I hope that it resonates, like I think it will, with a lot of people that are going to find this podcast for a variety of different reasons. We hope that somebody, or a lot of people, not just somebody, but a lot of people find their way and find the hope and positivity and inspiration out of it. And obviously from all of us here back in Northwest Ohio, we thank you for what you did in your service, and all of your brothers and sisters that did all of that and do that every single day in the military and have been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years. I don't know that we can ever say thank you enough to active service men and women and veterans at all. And I'm with you on what you'd said earlier about why you've always been a patriotic guy. That's kind of how I was raised too. I had it in both sides, and I've always respected the hell out of the military. It's the backbone of and the fiber of our being is what you guys do. So thank you so very much for being with us today and talking a little bit about this, because I know it's not. We chuckled a little bit here and there. There were some amazing things, like you saying, hey, I'm a Defiance, Ohio guy. I'm in the National Guard, but so many other emotions that you deal with on a daily basis that we'll just probably never be able to I guess say thank you enough, or appreciative enough. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show too, and having that chance to just say thank you to everybody else too, and who may not have been able to hear the speech on Veterans Day, but yeah, thank you for all the support and the prayers, and it was definitely felt by everybody that was over there. Northwest
Ohio is an amazing place. I don't think enough people realize that. And when something like this happens, you feel Northwest Ohio behind you, either there and or when you come home, definitely, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%.
So we have a speed round that we end everything with a guest. And this is just another way to kind of get to know you a little bit. Are you ready and willing and able?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
All right. So first question, what would you choose as your favorite word?
Resiliency. Just being resilient.
Okay.
It's one of my favorites.
Least favorite word?
Can't. I hate the word can't.
It's a good one. Sound or noise that you love?
Ooh. The wind in the leaves. And just sitting in the woods and just hearing the wind go through the woods.
Sound or noise that you hate?
Sharpies on paper that make that noise. I instantly get when it makes that sound, I get goosebumps every time. It's weird.
Yeah,
weird.
I wouldn't have picked that, but I wouldn't have guessed that, I guess is what I'm saying, that you'd have picked that. What profession other than the one that you're in now have you always maybe wanted to attempt?
Sales.
Any specific?
Nothing too specific. Maybe I just think if I'm interested in it, I think I could sell the crap out of anything. I can talk to pretty much anybody and make a connection. Yeah. I think I could do very well in sales.
Okay. Last one, and get you out of the hot seat here. This is usually I guess this is a big picture question, but I guess for what I'm going to do for my purposes here, I want to ask, how would you like what you did in Afghanistan in particular, since that's kind of specifically what we touched on a lot here today, how would you like people to remember that?
Remember this is perfect. I want you to remember the girls' school that got shipped out, because there was 150 like high school, college-aged girls that were hunkered down in a school a little ways away, and they were afraid to leave. We helped them get out of safety and just preserving human rights. That's what I want you to remember. I always remember the 13 fallen soldiers that was there, but remember why, and that it was the smiles that we saw on all of those kids' faces, and just the happiness of them getting to have a better life.
That's a great way to end it. Austin, thank you so much for your time. Master Sergeant Austin Carr, look forward to seeing you down the road. And thanks for, again, spending some time with us today here on our podcast, 15 Minutes with Andy.
Thank you very much.
Austin Carr, our guest. We hope you have enjoyed it. Look forward to our next time together here on 15 Minutes with Andy. Have a great rest of your day.